soldiers of Reddit who have faced child soldiers in combat, what has been your, or your comrades', experience? Any unique challenges you or others have faced? My ex was British Royal Marines and fought child soldiers. This was 10 plus years before I met him. But he had horrible nightmares and on a couple of occasions broke down crying while drunk. He never told me everything in a coherent, start to finish way, but from what I've pieced together he killed one or more child soldiers protecting his unit. It catapulted him into self-loathing. He got awarded a medal for it, refused to accept it, but was forced to attend the ceremony with members of the royal family. Only got through it by drinking himself into a stupor and then spent the next 4 to 5 years with a serious coke habit before being able to transition into more moderate alcoholism. So yay. My buddy said that kids would often run up to the convoy trucks in Iraq and some of the guys would give them candy, even though they weren't supposed to. On one such occasion, a kid tossed 2 live grenades into the truck. One of the grenades was quickly tossed away to explode without issue. The other was not as easy to get rid of and ended up amongst the group of kids. The guys giving out candy were put on cleanup duty. No idea what the approximate age of the children was and not many other details. It was pretty rare to get him drunk enough and in a mood to talk about any of it. I was deployed in Afghanistan from 2009 to 2010 and again in 2012 with the US Army. Due to the nature of my deployments, the first one was much more kinetic and that's where most of my personal encounters with the enemy happened. A lot of the people we fought were teenagers, probably from 16-19 years old, so some of them were children by the US definition. But over there people grow up a lot faster. Everyone I dealt with was trying to kill me, so I don't feel any remorse about shooting back at them or dropping mortar rounds on them. I never had to deal with younger kids being a threat or anything like that, thankfully. And honestly, myself and everyone I knew generally really liked the little kids over there. They were usually sweet and nice, and always asked for candy and gum and stuff like that. And even when those little shits would throw rocks at our trucks, it was hard to blame them. Not much else to do for fun around there. Recovering from the addiction after self-medicating on liquor for 6 months after my deployment. Spent a lot of time with my friend's brother when he would come back from his tours. He confided in me that he had taken a kid's life because in his mind it could be them or it could be me. On a previous tour he witnessed a child with a bomb strapped to him hug a fellow soldier and blow them up. A lot of his stories were very hard to listen to and it was clear to me that he did not return as the same person that I knew growing up. My brother was in Iraq during early mid-2000s when things were really whack. Said he was on gate duty one night and a kid walked up with an MRE trying to get him and his buddies to come up to the gate. Obviously none of them got up because they had MREs of their own, but long story short, the kid blew up from an IED they had put in the MRE bag the kid was holding. He had a couple other stories, but the shit he saw was enough to make a hardcore atheist find Jesus. So IDK. We don't talk much now, but if you're reading this, I love you, man. Didn't actually pull the trigger on the kid but was ready to. Convoy through a village and the kid reaches into a pocket and pulls out what looks like a grenade and tries to throw it. I hesitated. The grenade slipped out of his hand behind him. It was damn rock. I was ready to kill a kid over a ducking rock. If it was a grenade and he managed to throw it, my hesitation could have meant my buddies' lives. I'm glad it was rock. Not me, but a fraternity brother and close friend who passed away told me a story once about his second deployment in the Middle East. He was an army ranger, their special forces, and was a breacher, first one enduring all breaches because he had balls of steel and insane reflexes. He told me that he killed a kid once who couldn't have been more than 14 years old. He said the action wasn't what haunted him. He said it was how it happened. He was leading the team through an alleyway to a door that led to a suspected illegal weapons cache, and he held his breaching shotgun up to the door and gave count. And as soon as he was about to breach, The door swung open and a kid leaned out through the door with an AK-47 pointed outward. So he blasted the kid in the face with the breacher shotgun, and he said the look of surprise on the kid's face was what bothered him. A mix of surprise and inevitability of his doom. There's no running from a ducking shotgun blast to the face. I can't speak for others, and thankfully I never had to pull the trigger, but I always gave them a lot more time in the crotches versus an adult. There were several times they ran up unexpectedly, waved a gun in our direction, or just generally acted like they were going to attack us. I'd put them in my sights and beg God, please don't make me do this. Thankfully, every time, they'd stop what they were doing. If it were an adult aiming a weapon at us, they'd get zero thought. I remember the ones I didn't pull the trigger on so much more than the ones that I did. I'm sure a lot of soldiers would disagree with me, but I sleep just fine at night. Not really the same thing, but this question reminded me of something I read in Stars and Stripes. While I was deployed, some army unit was doing daily patrols through some shithole town I can't remember the name of. They did this patrol every day and the locals got to know them pretty well and didn't seem to mind. And the kids in town would run alongside the convoy and beg for candy. A bunch of soldiers started tossing them stuff from their MREs. It was a hearts and minds type thing, I guess. Anyway, one day while on this routine patrol, an IED ripped through the convoy while it was stopped, and a bunch of kids were gathered around. I can't remember the exact numbers, but I think like maybe 4 soldiers were either killed or wounded, and something like 20 or more kids were killed. I know it was a pretty high number, and the first thing I thought was goddamn. This village just lost like 20% of the kids that live there. I wasn't on this convoy and I don't know anyone who was, but I had been on the same sort of mission dozens of times and could easily place myself there. I saw kids get killed by insurgents and allies, but I never saw a mass casualty situation involving little kids like this. If you've never been in combat, it's hard to explain to people how frenetic and chaotic combat can be. You don't get a red pip that highlights where the enemy is. You don't have a radar. You don't get a notification that your shot hit its target. You hear bullets WHHRT past you, smack into something near you, ground, wall, trees, vehicles, etc. And you get behind cover. You then start yelling to your squad mates about where you collectively think the incoming fire is coming from. Sometimes it's obvious, but usually it's not. You're even more ducked if you're in an urban, semi-urban setting where there are non-combatant civilians running around. Worse still, when you simply can't tell the difference between the two. You're trying to not die. You're trying to leave cover, acquire a target, shoot that target, and then get back behind cover before someone sees you and shoots you. This does not leave a whole lot of time for pondering how old your target is, what their motivations are, or how long they've been a soldier. Mix this in with the kids who would run around trying to pick up grass in the middle of a firefight, and it's just a hot, chaotic mess. I didn't want to die, so I shot back. Most people who have been in combat will tell you something similar. I wouldn't say it was unique because every day in itself was always something new, and the child may not a soldier, but my stepdad was a paratrooper in the special forces. It took me several years to get him to tell me anything about the combat he had seen during the Gulf War. His first kill was a child around the age of 8. Stepdad was in the back of a convoy holding rear position. They stopped for some reason I never asked, and the child came running at them from behind. He was naked except a thick vest and had a grenade in his hand. Stepdad told him to stop over 10 times. The boy's father was watching from a nearby building. Still messes him up and he goes to therapy 3 times a week. War is hell.